Jessica threw her champagne in Marcus's face. The gymnasium went silent. 200 people watched the golden liquid drip down his jaw, soak into his department store suit pool at his feet. "You're still a nobody," she hissed. "You always were. You always will be." Marcus didn't move, didn't wipe his face, didn't blink. 15 years of marriage, 3 years of divorce, and she still knew exactly where to cut. Then a voice came from behind him. Calm, cold, dangerous. "Actually, Mrs. Harrington, you just threw champagne on my chief technology officer." Jessica's face went white. What happened next would destroy everything she thought she knew about the man she'd thrown away. If you've ever been humiliated, underestimated, or made to feel worthless, this story is your revenge. Drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this story travels. Hit subscribe and that notification bell. Trust me, you'll want to see how this ends. The champagne burned Marcus's eyes. He stood frozen, feeling the cold liquid run down his neck, seep under his collar, cling to his skin like shame. Around him, the gymnasium had gone completely still. The DJ kept playing some 90s R&B track, but nobody was dancing anymore. Nobody was talking. 200 former classmates stood with drinks halfway to their mouths, watching the scene unfold like a car crash they couldn't look away from. Jessica's chest heaved. Her diamond bracelet caught the light as her hand trembled, not from regret. Marcus knew, but from rage. The same rage that had lived inside her for 3 years. The rage of a woman who had rewritten their entire history and couldn't stand seeing him breathe the same air as her new life. "Say something," she demanded. "Fight back for once in your pathetic life." Marcus reached up slowly, wiped champagne from his eyes, looked at his wet fingers. "You ruined my suit," he said quietly. "That's what you care about, your cheap suit. It's the only one I own, Jessica." She laughed, that sharp, cruel laugh he'd heard 1,000 times during their marriage, the one that always preceded the worst cuts. "Of course it is. Of course it's the only one you own." She turned to the crowd, playing to her audience. "Ladies and gentlemen, my ex-husband, Marcus Williams, father of my daughter, and owner of exactly one suit." Someone in the crowd snickered. Derek, her surgeon husband, stepped forward and put a hand on her arm. "Jess, maybe we should—" "No." She shook him off. "He needs to hear this. He needed to hear it years ago, but I was too nice, too patient, too stupid to see what everyone else saw." Marcus felt the old familiar weight settling on his chest. The weight of never being enough. The weight of failing to become the man she'd expected him to be. "What did everyone see?" he asked, hating himself for engaging, unable to stop. Jessica smiled, the smile of a woman who'd been waiting for this moment. "A loser," she said. "A coward. A man so afraid of failure that he never even tried to succeed." 20 minutes earlier, Marcus had almost driven away. He'd sat in his Honda Accord for 15 minutes, hands on the steering wheel, watching former classmates stream into the gymnasium in their expensive clothes and confident walks. His phone had buzzed with a text from Maya. "Good luck, Daddy. Show them who you are. Love you to the moon." He'd typed back, "Love you more, baby girl." Then he'd stared at the gymnasium doors and thought about all the reasons he shouldn't go inside. Jessica would be there. That was reason enough. But there were other reasons too. David Park, who'd made millions with his tech startup. Sarah Chen, who'd become a federal judge. Tommy Morrison, who owned half the restaurants downtown. And Marcus Williams, who was still writing code in a cubicle, still driving a 12-year-old car, still living in a 2-bedroom apartment, because that's what he could afford after child support, and Maya's activities, and the 100 other expenses that came with raising a daughter alone. He'd almost put the car in reverse. Then he'd thought about Maya asking, "How was the reunion, Daddy?" and having to tell her he didn't go, having to explain that he was too scared, too ashamed. "You're better than this," he'd muttered, and he'd walked inside. Now standing in a puddle of champagne, Marcus wondered if Maya would have preferred the lie. "I didn't come here to fight," he said to Jessica. "I came to see old friends." "What friends?" "You never had friends. You had me, and you had your computers, and that was it." Jessica stepped closer. close enough that he could smell her perfume, the same one she'd worn on their wedding day. Do you know what people used to say about us, about why I was with you? I don't care what people said. They said I settled. They said I felt sorry for you. The poor black kid from the projects who got lucky with a scholarship. Her voice dropped to a stage whisper that carried across the silent room. They were right. Marcus felt something crack inside him. Something he'd been holding together for 3 years. I loved you, he said. I know. That was the problem. Jessica shook her head. Your love was small, Marcus. Safe. You wanted a house in the suburbs and 2 kids and retirement at 65. You wanted average. You wanted fine. I wanted a family. You wanted to hide. She jabbed a finger at his chest. You were afraid to want more, afraid to reach for more, afraid to be more. And I spent 15 years waiting for you to grow up, and you never did. Derek tried again. Jessica, people are staring. Let them stare. She spun around, addressing the crowd directly. Let them see what happens when you marry potential instead of reality. Let them see what 15 years of waiting looks like. She turned back to Marcus. You were supposed to be somebody. You were valedictorian. You had every opportunity, and you threw it all away to play it safe. I raised our daughter. Our daughter? Jessica's laugh was bitter. You mean the daughter you use as an excuse. The reason you couldn't take the job in New York. The reason you couldn't work longer hours. The reason you couldn't be what I needed. She's 10 years old. She needed a father. She needed a role model. Instead, she got you. Jessica shook her head. A man who never fought for anything. A man who let life happen to him instead of making life happen. A man who... Enough. The word came out harder than Marcus intended, loud enough to cut through the gymnasium, loud enough to make Jessica take a step back. For a moment, something flickered in her eyes. Surprise, maybe. Or fear. She'd never heard that tone from him before. Because he'd never used it before. I said enough. Marcus's voice was steady now, cold. You want to talk about who I am? Fine, let's talk. Jessica recovered quickly. Please, enlighten us. I'm a man who worked 2 jobs through college, so I wouldn't graduate with debt. I'm a man who gave up a promotion because my wife wanted to stay near her dying mother. I'm a man who spent 15 years putting everyone else first, because that's what I thought love meant. That's called being a pushover. That's called being a partner. Something you never understood. Marcus stepped forward now, closing the distance she'd created. You want to know why I didn't take the job in New York? Because you cried for 3 nights straight about leaving your mother. You want to know why I didn't work longer hours? Because you told me you were lonely, that you needed me home. You want to know why I never reached for more? He was inches from her face now. Because every time I did, you told me I wasn't ready, wasn't good enough, wasn't smart enough, wasn't man enough. Jessica's face had gone pale. That's exactly what happened. And I believed you. For 15 years I believed you. I let you make me small because I thought that's what marriage was. I thought love meant sacrificing who you were for who your partner needed you to be. Marcus. But you didn't need a partner, did you, Jessica? You needed a prop. Someone to make you feel superior. Someone to stand next to you and make you look better by comparison. He shook his head slowly. And when I stopped serving that purpose, when I started being happy with who I was, instead of apologizing for it, that's when you left. The gymnasium was dead silent. Derek looked like he wanted to disappear. Jessica looked like she'd been slapped. You don't get to rewrite history, Marcus said. You don't get to stand there in your designer dress and your diamonds and pretend you were the victim. You left. You took the house. You took the savings. You tried to take our daughter. And when the judge saw through your lies and gave me primary custody, you called me at midnight screaming that I'd ruined your life. I was upset. You were exposed. For the first time in your life, someone saw through the performance, and you couldn't handle it. Marcus stepped back. I'm not a nobody, Jessica. I'm a father. I'm an engineer. I'm a man who shows up every single day for his daughter, who reads to her every night, who helps with her homework and goes to her recitals and holds her when she cries because her mother forgot her birthday again. Jessica flinched. That's right, she told me. Maya waited by the window for 3 hours last month because you said you'd come. You never showed. You never even called. Marcus's voice cracked slightly. She's 10 years old and she's already learned not to count on you. What kind of mother does that make you? I was busy. You were always busy. Too busy for her, but never too busy for your career. Never too busy for Derek. Never too busy for yourself. He looked at her with something that might have been pity. You want to know the saddest part? She still defends you. Every time I get angry, she tells me not to be mean to Mommy. She still loves you, Jessica. Despite everything you've done, she still loves you. Jessica's eyes were wet. For a moment, just a moment, she looked like the woman Marcus had married. Vulnerable. Real. Then the mask slammed back into place. This is pathetic, she said. You're making a scene. You threw champagne in my face. I think the scene was already made. Because you deserved it. Coming here with your sad suit and your sad face acting like you're some kind of martyr. She straightened her spine. You want the truth, Marcus, fine. Here's the truth. I don't regret leaving you, not for 1 second. You were holding me back. You were an anchor around my neck, and the moment I cut you loose, my life got better in every possible way. She gestured at Derek at her dress at the diamonds dripping from her body. Look at me. Look at my life. And look at you. She laughed. Still a nobody. Still broke. Still alone. Still the same scared little boy from the projects pretending he belongs in rooms like this. Jessica. No, we're done. I said what I needed to say. She turned to walk away. And that's when the voice came from behind Marcus. Actually, Mrs. Harrington, I have a few things to add. Marcus turned. Robert Chen stood 3 feet away, arms crossed. Expression unreadable. He was dressed simply. Black, t-shirt, dark jeans, sneakers, looking nothing like a man worth $12 billion. Looking nothing like the face that had graced the cover of Forbes Time and Wired in the past year alone. But Jessica recognized him. Her face went white. Mr. Chen? She breathed. Robert, please. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. I was just dropping off a gift for my cousin's new baby, class of 2006. Saw the reunion happening and thought I'd peek in. His gaze shifted to Marcus. Didn't expect to find my best engineer getting champagne thrown in his face by his ex-wife. Jessica's mouth opened, closed, opened again. I didn't know you two worked together. Did the company parking sticker on his car not give it away? Robert moved to stand beside Marcus. Chen Innovations. Been there about a year now, though I've been trying to promote him for the last 6 months. Promote him. To CTO. Robert said it casually like he was discussing the weather. Chief Technology Officer. The board approved it yesterday. Marcus's work on our neural network project was exceptional. Revolutionary, actually. His code is going to change how we approach medical diagnostics worldwide. The color drained completely from Jessica's face. Derek stepped forward, sensing opportunity. Mr. Chen. I'm Dr. Derek Harrington. I run several medical practices in the area. If you're working on healthcare applications, your practice is on our list. Dr. Harrington, applications go through standard channels. Robert didn't even look at him. His focus was entirely on Jessica. I'm curious about something, Mrs. Harrington. You called your ex-husband a nobody. Said he never amounted to anything. I was upset. I didn't mean... Because from where I'm standing, I see a man who's about to become one of the most powerful executives in Silicon Valley. A man whose work is going to save lives. A man who, despite raising a daughter alone, despite going through what I can only imagine was a brutal divorce, never once lost his integrity or his kindness. Robert's voice hardened. And then I see a woman who threw champagne on him in front of 200 people because Why exactly? Because he had the audacity to exist, to show his face at his own reunion. Jessica's lip trembled. You don't understand our history. I understand enough. Robert reached into his pocket and pulled out a handkerchief. He handed it to Marcus, who took it silently. I understand that you left a good man because he wasn't flashy enough. I understand that you tried to take his daughter. I understand that you forgot that daughter's birthday last month. He told you that? No, Maya told my mother. They've become quite close. Robert's smile was cold. Apparently Maya loves coming to our house because, and I quote, Mrs. Chen never forgets anything. Jessica's face crumbled. I think, Robert said slowly, that you should apologize to Marcus. And then I think you should leave him alone, for good. You can't tell me what to do. No, but I can tell you what happens if you don't. He leaned closer. My company has a very robust legal team, and I have a very long memory. If you ever publicly humiliate my CTO again, if you ever try to use your daughter as a weapon against him, again, if you ever forget that little girl's birthday again, I will make it my personal mission to ensure that every door in this city closes in your face. He straightened. Do we understand each other? Jessica looked at Derek. Derek looked at the floor. Neither spoke. Good. Robert turned to Marcus. Let's get you cleaned up. We have a lot to discuss about your new role. He glanced back at Jessica one final time. Have a pleasant evening, Mrs. Harrington. Doctor. And he walked toward the exit, Marcus falling into step beside him. Behind them, the gymnasium remained silent. Then the whispers started. Slowly at first. Then building. Like a wave. Marcus didn't hear them. His ears were ringing. His mind was racing. Robert. Yes. Did you mean all that about the CTO position? Robert pushed open the gymnasium door. The night air hit them both. I meant every word. He stopped and turned to face Marcus fully. I've been watching you for a year, Marcus. The way you code, the way you solve problems, the way you treat everyone from the janitor to the board members with the same respect. He shook his head. You have no idea how rare that is, how valuable. I just try to do my job. You try to be a good person. That's different. Robert started walking toward the parking lot. My father left when I was 12, told my mother he needed someone more suitable for his ambitions. Last year he called asking for money. Marcus said nothing. Some people, Robert continued, only understand success in terms of dollar signs and titles. They spend their whole lives chasing external validation, never realizing that the person they're becoming isn't someone worth being. He stopped beside a black Tesla. Your ex-wife is one of those people. You're not. He met Marcus's eyes. That's why I want you as my CTO. Not because of your code, though your code is exceptional. Because of who you are. Because I trust you to lead people the way they deserve to be led. Marcus felt something shift inside him, something that had been broken for a very long time. I don't know if I'm qualified. You're not. Neither was I when I started this company. Robert smiled a real smile this time. But you'll learn, and you'll have good people around you, and you'll figure it out the same way you've figured everything else out. He opened his car door. Go home, Marcus. Pick up your daughter. Think about the offer. Call me in the morning. What if I say no? Then I'll ask again next week. Robert slid into the driver's seat. And the week after that, and the week after that. I'm very persistent. He closed the door. The window rolled down. For what it's worth, Robert said, you're not a nobody, Marcus. You never were. You just spent too many years listening to someone who needed you to believe you were. The Tesla pulled away. Marcus stood alone in the parking lot. His suit was still damp. His eyes still burned. But something had changed. Something fundamental. He pulled out his phone, typed a message to Maya. Coming to pick you up early, baby girl. How about midnight pancakes? The response came instantly. Yes, Mrs. Chen says she wants pancakes too. Can she come? Marcus laughed. For the first time in 3 years, the laugh reached his chest. Tell her she's invited. And tell her to bring the good syrup. He walked to his car, got in, started the engine. In the rearview mirror, he could see the gymnasium lights glowing against the night sky. Somewhere in there, Jessica was explaining, making excuses, spinning the narrative. Marcus didn't care. He had somewhere more important to be. The drive to the Chen family home took 23 minutes. Marcus knew because he counted every one of them, using the time to replay the entire evening in his head like a film he couldn't turn off. Jessica's face when she threw the champagne, the cold shock of it hitting his skin, the silence of 200 people watching him drown in his own humiliation. And then Robert Chen standing there like some kind of guardian angel in a black t-shirt, calmly dismantling everything Jessica had built, with nothing more than words, and the quiet authority of a man who didn't need to prove anything to anyone. CTO. The letters kept circling in Marcus's mind. Chief Technology Officer of Chen Innovations, one of the most valuable tech companies in the world. Him. Marcus Williams from Apartment 4B in the East Side Projects. Marcus Williams, who used to steal ketchup packets from McDonald's because his mother couldn't afford condiments. Marcus Williams, who had been told his entire life that men like him didn't get opportunities like this. His phone buzzed. Another text from Maya. We made popcorn. Mrs. Chen burned some, but we're eating it anyway, because she says waste is a sin. Marcus smiled despite himself. His daughter had that effect on him. The Chen family compound appeared ahead, all elegant architecture and manicured gardens that somehow managed to feel welcoming rather than intimidating. Marcus had been here twice before, once for the company picnic, once when Mrs. Chen had insisted on having him and Maya over for Sunday dinner. Both times he'd felt like an imposter. Tonight, for reasons he couldn't fully explain, he didn't. He pulled up to the gate and pressed the intercom button. Marcus! Mrs. Chen's voice crackled through the speaker, warm and slightly breathless. Come in? Come in. Maya has been teaching me about something called a creeper, and I am very disturbed. The gate swung open. Marcus drove through, shaking his head. His daughter had a way of adopting people. First it had been Mr. Patterson from the apartment next door, a retired veteran who now attended all of Maya's school events like a proud grandfather. Then it had been Sarah, the barista at the coffee shop near their apartment, who always snuck Maya extra whipped cream. And now, apparently, it was the mother of a billionaire tech mogul. Maya would conquer the world someday. Marcus had no doubt about that. The front door burst open before he'd even parked. Maya came sprinting out in her pajamas, her braids flying behind her, her face split by the biggest smile he'd seen in weeks. Daddy! She launched herself at him the moment he stepped out of the car. Marcus caught her, lifting her up and holding her tight, breathing in the smell of her shampoo and the faint scent of burnt popcorn. Hey, baby girl. You came early. Mrs. Chen said you might not come until really late because reunions are boring and full of people pretending to be happy. Marcus laughed. Mrs. Chen is very wise. She's also really bad at Minecraft. Maya pulled back to look at him, and her smile faltered. Daddy, why is your suit wet? Marcus hesitated. How do you explain to a 10-year-old that her mother had publicly humiliated her father in front of 200 people? Someone spilled their drink on me, he said. Not technically a lie. Maya's eyes narrowed. She had Jessica's eyes, that same sharp intelligence that missed nothing, but she'd inherited Marcus's heart. Was it Mom? The question hit him like a punch. What makes you ask that? Because you have your mom face on, the one you get when she calls and you have to go into the other room so I won't hear you being sad. Marcus set her down slowly. Maya. It's okay, Daddy. She took his hand. Mrs. Chen says that some people break things because they're broken inside, and that the best thing we can do is not let them break us too. Marcus stared at his daughter, 10 years old and already wiser than most adults he knew. When did Mrs. Chen tell you that? When I told her about the time Mom said I was too much like you and that wasn't a compliment. Maya shrugged, like it was nothing, like her mother's cruelty was just another fact of life to be accepted and moved past. I cried a little. But then Mrs. Chen made me hot chocolate and told me about her husband, and how he used to say mean things too before he learned how to be better. Mrs. Chen's husband passed away a long time ago, baby. I know. She said he got better before he died. She said some people figure it out eventually. Maya looked up at him with those devastating eyes. Do you think Mom will figure it out? Marcus didn't know what to say, so he did what he always did when he didn't have answers. He knelt down to his daughter's level and told her the truth. I don't know, Maya, but I hope so. For your sake. For mine. What about for yours? I stopped hoping for me a long time ago. Maya considered this with the gravity only a child could muster. Then she hugged him fierce and tight, her small arms wrapped around his neck like she could protect him from the world. Then I'll hope for both of us, she whispered. I'm really good at hoping. Marcus held his daughter in the driveway of a billionaire's home, his ruined suit drying in the night air, and felt something he hadn't felt in 3 years. Hope. Mrs. Chen appeared in the doorway, elegant even in silk pajamas and slippers, a slight smile on her face. Marcus, you're early. I heard there was burnt popcorn. Your daughter is a terrible influence. She has convinced me to abandon all dignity and eat snacks past midnight. Mrs. Chen descended the steps with the grace of a woman who had spent her life moving through spaces that tried to reject her. She also mentioned something about pancakes. Midnight pancakes are a Williams family tradition. Then I am honored to be included. Mrs. Chen reached them and placed a gentle hand on Marcus's arm. Robert called. He told me what happened. Marcus stiffened. I'm sorry you had to... Stop. Her voice was soft but firm. You have nothing to apologize for. That woman should be ashamed of herself. Throwing champagne like some kind of soap opera villain. She shook her head. In my day, we had more class about our cruelties. Marcus couldn't help but laugh. Did you just make a joke about being cruel? I am Korean. We invented passive aggression as an art form. Her eyes twinkled. Now come inside. I will not have you standing in my driveway looking like a sad, wet cat while my granddaughter gets cold. I'm not cold, Maya protested, and you're not my grandmother. Not yet, but I am very persistent. Mrs. Chen winked at Marcus. It runs in the family. They went inside. The Chen home was warm and welcoming in a way that expensive homes rarely managed. Family photos lined the walls. Robert as a child. Robert graduating from MIT. Robert at the first Chen Innovations office, which was little more than a garage. And in every photo there was Mrs. Chen standing beside her son with the quiet pride of a woman who had built something from nothing. Sit, Mrs. Chen commanded, gesturing to the living room. Maya, show your father the empire we built. Maya grabbed Marcus's hand and dragged him to the massive television, where a Minecraft world sprawled across the screen in all its blocky glory. Look, we made a castle, and a farm, and a place for horses, even though we don't have horses yet, because Mrs. Chen keeps killing them by accident. It is not my fault the controls are counterintuitive. You hit them with a sword. I was trying to feed them. Marcus watched them bicker with the easy familiarity of people who had spent hours together, and something in his chest loosened. This is what Maya needed. This is what she deserved. Not the cold weekends at Jessica's apartment where she was treated like an inconvenience, but this warmth laughter people who actually wanted her around. I'm going to make pancakes, Marcus announced. Kitchen. Through there. Everything you need should be in the pantry. Mrs. Chen settled onto the couch beside Maya. We will continue our conquest while you cook. Our conquest. Maya has decided we're building a civilization. I have been appointed Minister of Agriculture, though I suspect this is because I kept flooding the mines. You did flood the mines, Maya said solemnly. So many diamonds lost. Marcus left them to their digital empire and found the kitchen. It was predictably immaculate. Marble countertops, professional-grade appliances, a refrigerator that probably cost more than his car. But the pantry was stocked with normal things. Flour, sugar, eggs, the kinds of ingredients that spoke of actual cooking, rather than just decoration. He found a mixing bowl and got to work. Cooking had always been his meditation. The precise measurements, the careful timing. The transformation of simple ingredients into something nourishing it was like coding in a way, following a process, trusting the outcome. He was whisking the batter when Mrs. Chen appeared in the doorway. Maya is teaching the computer people to build a library. She says education is the foundation of civilization. She moved to the counter and began pulling out plates and silverware. She is remarkable, your daughter. She gets that from her mother. No. Mrs. Chen's voice was sharp. She gets that from you. The ambition might look similar, but the heart is entirely different. Your ex-wife builds things to be admired. Maya builds things to be shared. Marcus said nothing, focusing on the pancake batter. Robert told me about the CTO position. Mrs. Chen set 3 plates on the counter with deliberate precision. He said you seemed uncertain. I'm not sure I'm qualified. No one is qualified for the jobs that matter. We grow into them. She turned to face him. When my husband died, I had a failing electronics store and a 12-year-old son. Everyone told me to sell, move back to Korea, find a husband who could provide. What did you do? I worked. Every day, 18 hours for 5 years. I learned the business. I made mistakes. I fixed them. I built something. Her eyes met his. Robert likes to say he built Chen Innovations, but we built it together, starting from nothing, starting from less than nothing. That's different. Why? Because I am an immigrant woman. Because I had no education, no connections, no money. She smiled slightly. You are a black single father from the projects. You have a degree from a good school, a decade of experience, and a mind that my son, who does not give praise easily, calls exceptional. You have far more than I did. I also have Maya to think about. Yes, and she is watching you. Mrs. Chen moved closer. Right now, that little girl is learning what it means to be a man. Not from television, not from her mother's new husband, from you. She is learning whether to reach for what she deserves or to stay small because reaching is frightening. Marcus's hands stilled on the whisk. What would you have me do? Take the position, make the money. Show your daughter that the world does not get to decide her limits. Mrs. Chen's voice softened. And stop letting your ex-wife live in your head. She has taken enough from you already. The words landed somewhere deep in Marcus's chest. In the place where he'd stored every doubt, every fear, every moment when Jessica's voice had told him he wasn't enough. I don't know how to stop hearing her. You don't stop hearing her. You start hearing yourself louder. Mrs. Chen picked up the bowl of batter and handed it to him. Now make my granddaughter her pancakes. We have a civilization to build. She walked back to the living room, leaving Marcus alone with his thoughts and a bowl of batter. He poured the first pancake onto the griddle and watched it begin to bubble. The first time Jessica had called him inadequate, they were 25, and she was pregnant with Maya. He'd just turned down a job offer in New York, better money, better title, but 60-hour weeks minimum, because she'd cried about leaving her mother, who had just been diagnosed with cancer. You could have done it, she'd said that night, her voice strange. You could have commuted. Other men do. I wanted to be here. For you. For the baby. That's sweet. She'd kissed his cheek. But sweet doesn't pay for private school. He'd laughed it off, thought she was joking. She wasn't joking. Over the years, the comments had accumulated like drops of water wearing away stone. Not ambitious enough. Not driven enough. Not enough. Not enough. Not enough. And he'd believed her. God help him, he'd believed every word. The pancake was ready. He flipped it, watched the golden underside sizzle against the heat. But tonight, standing in that gymnasium with champagne dripping down his face, something had broken free, some final thread that had kept him tethered to her version of him. He wasn't a nobody. He was a father who showed up every single day. He was an engineer whose code was going to change medicine. He was a man who had survived things that would have broken lesser people and come out the other side still capable of kindness. That wasn't nothing. That was everything. The first stack of pancakes was done. He started on the second. Maya appeared in the kitchen doorway, her eyes bright with excitement. Daddy, we did it. We finished the library. Mrs. Chen even figured out how to make windows. That's amazing, baby girl. Can I have chocolate chips in mine? Do you even need to ask? She grinned and ran to the pantry, emerging seconds later with a bag of chocolate chips that she cradled like treasure. Mrs. Chen says you're going to be a really important person at Mr. Roberts' company. Did she now? She says you're going to be the CTO, which is like the boss of all the computers. Maya climbed onto a stool at the counter watching him cook. Is that true? Marcus considered his answer carefully. Mr. Robert asked me to think about it. What's there to think about? It's a big job. Lots of responsibility. Long hours sometimes. But you'd still be home for dinner, right? That's what Mr. Robert said. And you'd still come to my science fairs and my recitals? I wouldn't miss them for anything. Then why are you thinking? Maya tilted her head, genuinely confused. It sounds like everything would be the same, just you'd be more important, and people would have to listen to you. It's more complicated than that. Adults always say that. She picked up a chocolate chip and ate it. But usually it's not. Marcus laughed. You might be right. I'm always right. She ate another chocolate chip. Mom says that's annoying, but I think it's just smart. The mention of Jessica sent a ripple through the room. Maya, about your mom. I know she was at your party. Maya's voice was matter-of-fact. Mrs. Chen didn't tell me, but I heard her talking to Mr. Robert on the phone. She said Mom was mean to you. Sweetheart. It's okay, Daddy. I know Mom can be mean sometimes. She doesn't mean it. She's just scared. Marcus set down the spatula. Scared of what? Scared that if she stops being mean, people will find out she's not actually better than everyone. Maya shrugged. That's what my therapist says anyway. You talked to Dr. Williams about this. She asked why I get nervous before Mom's weekends. I told her. Maya ate another chocolate chip. She said that some people feel so small inside that they have to make other people feel smaller to feel okay, and that it's sad, not mean. Well, it's both, but mostly sad. Marcus stared at his daughter, this impossible creature who had somehow emerged from the wreckage of his marriage with her heart intact. When did you get so wise? I read a lot. She smiled. And I listen. You always say listening is a superpower. I do say that. I learned it from you. She reached across the counter and took his hand. Daddy, can I tell you something? Anything. I'm really proud of you. Her voice was small but steady. I know Mom says things that hurt you, and I know sometimes you feel like you're not good enough. But you are. You're the best daddy in the whole world. And I don't care if you're a CTO or a whatever. I just care that you're mine. Marcus felt tears prick at his eyes. Come here. She scrambled off the stool and into his arms, and he held her tight, this small person who believed in him more than he'd ever believed in himself. I love you, Maya. I love you too, Daddy. She pulled back and looked at him seriously. Now can I please have my pancakes? I'm starving. He laughed, wiping his eyes. Yes, pancakes. Coming right up. Mrs. Chen appeared in the doorway again, smiling softly. I believe I was promised midnight pancakes and emotional catharsis. I have received the catharsis. Where are my pancakes? Coming, Mrs. Chen. That's Grandmother Chen to you. You're not my grandmother, Maya said automatically. Not yet. Mrs. Chen moved to the coffee maker. But I am very persistent. They ate pancakes at the kitchen counter at 1 a.m. A billionaire's mother, a single father in a ruined suit, and a 10-year-old girl with chocolate chip smears on her face. They talked about Minecraft and school, and whether horses were better than donkeys. They laughed at Mrs. Chen's attempts to pronounce Minecraft terminology. They debated the merits of various syrup brands with the seriousness of Supreme Court justices. It was Marcus realized the happiest he'd been in years. Around 2 a.m, Maya's eyes started drooping. Marcus carried her to the guest room where she'd been sleeping, tucking her into a bed that was probably worth more than his car. Daddy. Yeah, baby. Take the job. I thought you were asleep. Almost. Her eyes fluttered open briefly. Take the job. Show them who you are. She was asleep before he could respond. Marcus stood there for a long moment, watching his daughter breathe, thinking about everything that had happened in the past 6 hours. Jessica's champagne in his face, Robert's hand on his shoulder, Mrs. Chen's quiet wisdom, Maya's impossible faith. He pulled out his phone, found Robert's number, typed a message. I'm in. Let's talk details Monday. The response came almost immediately despite the late hour. Excellent. I knew you'd come around. Sleep well, Marcus. Monday we change the world. Marcus pocketed his phone and walked back to the kitchen where Mrs. Chen was washing dishes despite his protests. She's asleep, he said. Good. Children need rest. She dried her hands on a towel. And so do you. The guest room next to Maya's is ready. I couldn't impose. You are not imposing. I am insisting. She fixed him with a look that brooked no argument. You will sleep here tonight. In the morning, I will make breakfast, and then you will go home and prepare for your new life. My new life? Yes, the one where you stop apologizing for existing. She crossed to him and placed both hands on his shoulders, looking up at him with an intensity that reminded him forcefully of Robert. You are a good man, Marcus Williams. Better than you know. It is time you started acting like it. She patted his cheek, once a gesture so maternal it made his chest ache, and then she was gone, disappearing down the hallway to her own room. Marcus stood alone in the kitchen of a mansion he had no business being in, wearing a suit that still smelled faintly of champagne, and made a decision. He was done being small. He was done apologizing. He was done letting Jessica's voice be louder than his own. Monday, he would walk into Chen Innovations and accept the position that would change his life. He would learn what he didn't know. He would grow into the role. He would prove not to Jessica, not to Robert, not to anyone but himself, that he was worthy of every opportunity that came his way. And he would show his daughter what it looked like when a man decided to stop being afraid. Marcus Williams went to bed that night in a billionaire's guest room, and for the first time in 3 years, he slept without dreaming of failure. Monday morning arrived faster than Marcus expected. He stood in front of his bathroom mirror at 5:47 a.m., adjusting a tie that suddenly felt like it was strangling him. The suit was new, purchased Sunday afternoon, with Maya's enthusiastic assistance, and it fit better than anything he'd ever owned. Navy blue, well-tailored, expensive enough that he'd winced at the price tag before Maya had grabbed it off the rack and declared it CEO worthy. CTO, he'd corrected. Same thing. You're going to be the boss. I'm going to be a boss. There's a difference. Not to me. She'd grinned up at him with that devastating smile. To me, you're always the boss. Now, staring at his reflection, Marcus tried to see what Robert Chen saw, what Mrs. Chen saw, what Maya saw. All he could see was a 40-year-old man who was about to walk into a room full of people far smarter and more accomplished than him and pretend he belonged there. His phone buzzed. A text from Robert. Car's outside. Don't overthink it. You're ready. Marcus grabbed his briefcase, also new, also Maya approved, and headed for the door. The black sedan waiting at the curb was not what he'd expected. Neither was the driver a serious-faced woman named Patricia, who informed him that Mr. Chen had arranged transportation for his first day. Is this going to be a regular thing? Marcus asked as he slid into the back seat. That's above my pay grade, sir. Patricia caught his eye in the rearview mirror. But between you and me, Mr. Chen doesn't send cars for people he's not serious about. Marcus didn't know what to say to that, so he said nothing. The drive to Chen Innovations headquarters took 40 minutes. Marcus spent most of it answering emails he'd been ignoring all weekend, including 3 from his old department, congratulating him on the promotion that hadn't even been officially announced yet. The tech industry had no secrets, especially not when a mid-level engineer was being catapulted to the C-suite overnight. Patricia dropped him at the main entrance, where a young man in an immaculate suit was already waiting. Mr. Williams, I'm Kevin, Mr. Chen's executive assistant. He asked me to escort you to the boardroom. The boardroom? The announcement is in 20 minutes. The board wanted to meet you first. Marcus felt his stomach drop. No one mentioned a board meeting. Mr. Chen felt it would be better if you didn't have time to overthink it. Kevin smiled apologetically. His words, not mine. Of course he did. They walked through the lobby, all glass and chrome, and the kind of aggressive modernity that tech companies seem to favor, and into an elevator that required a special key card to access the top floors. A few things to know, Kevin said as they ascended. The board consists of 7 members. 4 are firmly in Mr. Chen's corner. 2 are skeptical of rapid promotions. 1 is his mother. Mrs. Chen is on the board. Chairwoman Emeritus. She doesn't attend most meetings, but she specifically requested to be present for this one. Kevin glanced at him. I understand you've met. We've had pancakes. Excuse me? Nothing. Go on. The skeptics are Harrison Webb and Diana Cho. Mr. Webb built his fortune in oil and gas. He's old school, traditional, not a fan of what he calls Silicon Valley theatrics. Mrs. Cho was burned by a previous CEO who promoted too quickly and nearly tanked the company. She'll want to know you have a plan. I've been preparing all weekend. Good, because Ms. Cho will find every weakness in that plan and exploit it. Kevin's smile was tight. She's very good at her job. The elevator doors opened onto a floor that made the lobby look modest. Marcus followed Kevin down a hallway lined with abstract art that probably cost more than his apartment building, through a set of double doors, and into a room that seemed designed to intimidate. 7 people sat around an enormous table. Robert was at the head, dressed in his usual black t-shirt, looking utterly relaxed. Mrs. Chen sat to his right, her expression unreadable. The others were a mix of ages and attitudes ranging from genuine warmth to barely concealed skepticism. Marcus. Robert stood and extended his hand. Thank you for coming. Thank you for the car. The least I could do, considering I'm about to throw you to the wolves. Robert gestured to the empty chair beside him. Everyone, this is Marcus Williams. Marcus, this is everyone. A round of introductions followed. Marcus shook hands and tried to remember names, but his attention kept drifting to the 2 people Kevin had warned him about. Harrison Webb was exactly what Marcus had expected. Silver-haired, stern-faced, with the kind of handshake that was meant to establish dominance. Diana Cho was a surprise, small, soft-spoken, with a gentle smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Mr. Williams, Webb said once everyone was seated. I'll be direct. Your resume is impressive, but it's not CTO impressive. What makes you think you're ready for this role? Marcus had prepared for this question. He'd practiced his answer in front of the mirror in the car in his head every moment since Saturday night. But when he opened his mouth, the rehearsed words disappeared. I don't think I'm ready, he said. The room went still. Robert's eyebrow twitched. Mrs. Chen's expression remained unchanged. I'm sorry. Webb leaned forward. Did you just say you're not ready? I said I don't think I'm ready. There's a difference. Marcus forced himself to meet Webb's eyes. I've been a software engineer for 15 years. I know code. I know systems. I know how to solve problems that other people don't see. But I've never managed at this level. I've never been responsible for decisions that affect thousands of employees and millions of users. Then why should we give you the job? Because I'm willing to learn. Marcus's voice steadied. And because the skills that matter most, integrity, judgment, the ability to listen, those can't be taught. You either have them or you don't. Webb snorted. Pretty words, but this is a business, not a philosophy seminar. You're right, it is a business. And the neural network project I led saved this company 8 months of development time and approximately $40 million in projected costs. Marcus pulled a folder from his briefcase. I brought the numbers if you'd like to review them. Webb blinked. Diana Cho reached for the folder. I'd like to review them, she said quietly. The next hour was the most grueling of Marcus's professional life. Diana Cho dissected every aspect of his work, his approach, his 5-year vision for the technology division. She found flaws he hadn't considered and gaps he couldn't defend. She was, as Kevin had warned, very good at her job. But she was also fair. When Marcus had good answers, she acknowledged them. When he didn't, she gave him the chance to think, rather than pouncing on his uncertainty. By the end, even Harrison Webb looked somewhat mollified. "I still have concerns," Webb said. "Your lack of executive experience is significant." "It is," Marcus agreed. But Robert didn't have executive experience when he founded this company. Neither did Mrs. Chen when she started the electronics store that became the foundation of everything we've built. Mrs. Chen's lips curved slightly. "The question isn't whether I'm experienced," Marcus continued. "The question is whether I'm capable of growing into the role, and the only way to answer that is to give me the chance to try." Silence stretched across the room. Then Robert spoke. "I think we've heard enough. Let's vote." The vote was 5-2 in Marcus's favor. Webb and one other board member abstained rather than voting no, which Kevin later told him was as close to an endorsement as either man ever gave. "Welcome to the executive team," Robert said, shaking Marcus's hand as the others filed out. "How do you feel? Like I might throw up?" "That's normal. It passes after the first quarterly review." Robert clapped him on the shoulder. "Now come on, we have an announcement to make." The all-hands meeting was held in the main auditorium, a space designed to hold 500 people. Today it was packed to capacity, with more employees watching via video link from satellite offices around the world. Marcus stood backstage, his heart hammering against his ribs, while Robert addressed the crowd. "As many of you know, we've been searching for a new CTO for the past 8 months. Someone with vision. Someone with integrity. Someone who understands not just how to build technology, but why we build it in the first place." Marcus closed his eyes, breathed deep. "I'm pleased to announce that search is over. Our new Chief Technology Officer is someone most of you already know. Someone whose work on the Neural Network project has positioned us to revolutionize healthcare transportation and communication. Someone who leads with humility and inspires with excellence." Robert paused. "Ladies and gentlemen, Marcus Williams." The applause hit Marcus like a wave as he walked onto the stage. He saw faces he recognized, colleagues who had become friends, subordinates who were about to become direct reports, a few people who looked surprised but not displeased. He reached the podium. The applause faded. 500 faces looked up at him, waiting. "Thank you," Marcus said, his voice only slightly unsteady. "I'm not going to pretend I was expecting this. A year ago, I walked into this building for a job interview, convinced I was going to be rejected. 6 months ago, I was eating lunch alone in the cafeteria, wondering if anyone even knew my name." A few chuckles from the audience. "What I've learned in that time is that this company is special, not because of the technology we build, but because of the people who build it. People who stay late not because they're told to, but because they believe in what they're doing. People who challenge each other to be better. People who never forgot that the work we do has the power to change lives." He looked out at the crowd, at this sea of faces representing dozens of countries and hundreds of different paths that had somehow converged in this room. "I'm not going to stand here and make promises I can't keep. What I will promise is this: I will listen. I will learn. I will fight for you when it matters and challenge you when you need it. And I will never forget what it felt like to be the person in the back of the room wondering if anyone saw their potential." He paused. "Because someone saw mine, and now it's my job to see yours." The applause that followed was different from before. Warmer, more genuine. Marcus walked off stage with his head held high, feeling for the first time like he might actually belong. The next 3 weeks passed in a blur of meetings, briefings, and more meetings. Marcus learned to navigate the politics of the executive suite, which were simultaneously more complex and more petty than anything he'd encountered as an engineer. He hired 2 deputy CTOs to shore up his weaknesses and spent his evenings studying leadership books that Maya found hilariously boring. "Dad, why are you reading about synergy?" "Because apparently it's important." "Synergy isn't important. Making cool stuff is important." "You're absolutely right. But I have to pretend synergy is important, so the other adults take me seriously." Maya had considered this with the gravity of a Supreme Court justice. Adult life sounds terrible. It has its moments. But even with the chaos of his new role, Marcus made sure to keep his promise. He was home for dinner every night. He attended Maya's robotics club meeting. He helped her with her science fair project, which had something to do with neural networks, and was either going to win first place or get them both flagged by the FBI. "I don't think the FBI monitors elementary school science fairs," he'd told her. "You don't know that. What if they have a special division? For what dangerous fourth graders? Fifth graders, Dad. I skipped a grade, remember?" She'd said it so casually, like skipping a grade was something everyone did, and Marcus had been reminded once again that his daughter was going to accomplish things he couldn't even imagine. It was on a Thursday, 3 weeks and 2 days after the announcement, that Jessica called. Marcus was in his office reviewing budget projections for the next quarter when his personal cell buzzed with a number he hadn't seen in months. He stared at it for 3 rings, considered letting it go to voicemail. Then he answered. "Jessica." "Marcus." Her voice was different, strained. "I need to see you. I'm at work." "I know. I tried your office line, but your assistant said you were in meetings all day." She paused. "I'm downstairs, in the lobby." Marcus felt something cold settle in his chest. "You're here at Chen Innovations. I need to talk to you, please. It's important." Everything in Marcus screamed to say no, to hang up, to let security handle whatever this was. But there was something in her voice, something that sounded almost like desperation. "I'll be down in 5 minutes." He found her standing near the reception desk, looking out of place in her designer dress and heels among the jeans and hoodie tech crowd. She looked thinner than the last time he'd seen her, tired. "Marcus." She turned to face him, and for a moment her mask slipped. "Thank you for seeing me." "What do you want, Jessica? Can we go somewhere private?" "No." The word came out harder than he intended. Jessica flinched. "Okay," she said quietly. "Here is fine." She reached into her purse and pulled out an envelope, handed it to him. "What is this? Open it." Marcus opened the envelope. Inside was a single sheet of paper, a legal document. He scanned it quickly, his heart rate climbing with each line. "You're giving up custody. I'm requesting a modification. Full custody to you. Visitation rights for me at your discretion." Jessica's voice was barely audible. "I spoke to my lawyer yesterday." Marcus stared at her. "Why?" "Because you were right." Her eyes were wet, though she didn't let the tears fall. "Everything you said at the reunion. About Maya. About forgetting her birthday. About being too busy." She shook her head. "Derek and I are getting divorced." "What?" "He was cheating. Has been for months, apparently. I found out last week." She laughed bitterly. "Ironic, isn't it? I left you because you weren't exciting enough, and I ended up with someone who found me too boring to be faithful to." Marcus didn't know what to say. Part of him, a small petty part he wasn't proud of, felt something like satisfaction. Justice. Karma coming around. But mostly he felt tired. "I'm sorry," he said, "that you're going through this. Don't be." Jessica wiped her eyes roughly. "I deserve it. I deserve all of it." She looked at him with something he'd never seen before. Honesty. "I was terrible to you, Marcus. Not just at the reunion, for years. I made you feel small because I felt small, and I didn't know any other way to feel big." "Jessica, let me finish, please." She took a breath. "I've been in therapy. Started last week after I found out about Derek. My therapist asked me to talk about my happiest memories. Do you know what I remembered?" Marcus shook his head. "Our first apartment. The one with the leaky faucet and the neighbor who played drums at 3 in the morning." Jessica smiled faintly. "We were so broke, eating ramen every night. But you used to make me laugh so hard my stomach hurt. And when I got promoted for the first time, you threw me a surprise party with a cake that said, 'My wife is smarter than me,' because you couldn't afford a real cake, so you decorated a sheet cake yourself." Marcus remembered. He'd spent 3 hours on that cake. The frosting had been a disaster. I was happy, Jessica said. Really happy. And somehow over the years I convinced myself that happiness wasn't enough. That I needed more. Better. Different. She met his eyes. I was wrong. And I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for everything I did to you. Everything I said. The lobby seemed to shrink around them. Marcus was aware of people walking past, of phones ringing, of life continuing while something fundamental shifted between them. Why are you telling me this? Because Maya deserves a mother who shows up, and I can't be that mother right now. I need to fix myself first. Jessica pressed the envelope into his hands. Take care of our daughter, Marcus. You've always been better at it than me. She turned to leave. Jessica. She stopped but didn't turn around. The custody modification. I'll agree to it, but on one condition. She turned. What? You don't disappear. Maya needs to know her mother loves her, even if you can't be there every day. Calls, video chats, birthday cards that arrive on time. Marcus's voice softened. She still defends you, you know. Every time I get frustrated, she tells me not to be mean to Mommy. Jessica's face crumpled. A single tear escaped down her cheek. I don't deserve her. No, but she deserves a mother who tries. Marcus stepped forward. Can you do that? Can you try? Jessica nodded. I can try. Then we have a deal. She left without another word, walking out of the lobby and into the afternoon sun, smaller somehow than she'd ever seemed before. Marcus stood there for a long moment, holding the envelope that contained the legal end of his marriage and the beginning of something new. Sir, Kevin appeared at his elbow. Your 2 o'clock is waiting. Right, thank you. Marcus folded the envelope and slipped it into his pocket. Kevin? Sir. Do you have kids? Kevin blinked at the unexpected question. A daughter. She's 7. Go home early tonight. Spend time with her. Marcus started walking toward the elevator. That's not a suggestion. Yes, sir. Kevin smiled. Thank you, sir. Marcus rode the elevator back to the top floor, thinking about fathers and daughters and the strange, twisted paths that led people to where they needed to be. His phone buzzed. A text from Maya. Dad, I figured out how to make the neural network recognize faces. Can we test it on Mr. Patterson tonight? Marcus laughed out loud, earning curious looks from 2 executives sharing the elevator. He typed back, only if we ask him first, and only if you've done your homework. Homework is for people who don't invent things. Nice try. Homework first, facial recognition second. Fine, but only because I love you. Love you too, baby girl. See you at dinner. He put his phone away and stepped off the elevator into his new life. For the first time in years, the future felt like something to look forward to rather than something to fear. 6 months changed everything. Marcus sat in his corner office on the 42nd floor, watching the sun rise over the city through floor-to-ceiling windows he still couldn't quite believe were his. On his desk next to the quarterly reports and the stack of patents awaiting his signature sat a framed photo Maya had given him for his birthday. The 2 of them at the beach, her on his shoulders, both of them laughing at something long forgotten. You look like you're thinking too hard again. Robert appeared in the doorway, 2 cups of coffee in hand. He crossed the room and set one on Marcus's desk before dropping into the chair across from him. I was thinking about the reunion, Marcus said. The champagne incident, I thought we agreed never to speak of that again. Not the champagne. What came after? Marcus picked up his coffee. If you hadn't walked in when you did, I would have left. Gone home. Probably spent the next decade convincing myself Jessica was right about everything. She wasn't right about anything. I know that now, but I didn't know it then. Marcus turned to face his friend. I never properly thanked you. You thank me every day by doing your job exceptionally well. The board meeting yesterday was proof enough. Robert leaned back. Harrison Webb actually smiled. I didn't know his face could do that. He smiled because the medical diagnostics division exceeded projections by 40%. He smiled because you made him money. Same thing in Webb's world. Robert sipped his coffee. Speaking of which, I have news. Good news, or the kind of news that comes with a 3-hour meeting? Both, actually. Robert set down his cup. The Mayo Clinic called this morning. They want to implement our diagnostic AI across their entire network, all locations, nationwide rollout within 18 months. Marcus felt the words land somewhere in his chest. Mayo Clinic. The most prestigious medical institution in the country, wanting his technology. That's massive, I know. The contract is worth approximately $800 million over 5 years, with potential expansion to international partners. Robert grinned. Congratulations, Marcus. You just changed medicine. Marcus stared at him. We changed medicine. The whole team. The team executed. You led. Robert stood and moved to the window. You know, when I hired you, my mother told me I was taking a risk. She said you were talented but broken. That broken people either rise or shatter, and there's no way to know which until you give them the weight. Your mother said that. In Korean. She thought I didn't understand, but I've been fluent since I was 12. Robert turned back to face him. You rose, Marcus. Higher than anyone expected, including yourself. Marcus didn't know what to say. The weight of the past 6 months pressed down on him, the late nights, the difficult decisions, the moments when imposter syndrome had nearly consumed him whole. I almost quit, he admitted. 3 months ago, after the board rejected the first diagnostics proposal, I had my resignation letter typed and ready. I know, Kevin told me. Kevin told you. Kevin tells me everything. It's why I pay him obscene amounts of money. Robert crossed back to his chair, but didn't sit. I also know you deleted the letter at 2 a.m. after spending 3 hours rewriting the proposal, and that you came in the next day and presented a version so compelling that even Diana Cho voted in favor. You knew all of that and didn't say anything. What was there to say? You figured it out yourself. That's the point. Robert finally sat down. Leadership isn't about never doubting yourself. It's about doubting yourself and doing the work anyway. Marcus thought about all the nights he'd lain awake convinced he was going to fail. All the mornings he'd forced himself out of bed despite the voice in his head that sounded uncomfortably like Jessica telling him he wasn't enough. My therapist says the same thing, Marcus said. You're seeing a therapist. Started 2 months ago. Maya's idea, actually. She said I make the same face when I'm stressed that I used to make during the divorce, and she thought I should talk to someone who wasn't her. Marcus smiled slightly. She's very direct. She gets that from her father. She gets that from her mother. The words came out before Marcus could stop them, but they didn't hurt the way they used to. Jessica is trying. She's called Maya every week since we signed the custody papers. Even remembered her half-birthday. Say, her half-birthday. Maya invented it. She decided that waiting a full year between celebrations was unreasonable, so now she has a half-birthday in June where she gets half a cake and one present. Marcus shook his head. Jessica actually mailed a gift, a book about women in STEM. Maya read it in 2 days. How do you feel about that, Jessica being more present? Marcus considered the question carefully. 6 months ago, he would have felt threatened, suspicious, certain that Jessica's renewed interest was a prelude to some new attempt to hurt him. Now he just felt tired. And maybe underneath the exhaustion, something like hope. I feel like Maya deserves a mother who shows up, he said. And if Jessica can be that person even partially, then I'm not going to stand in the way. Robert nodded slowly. You've changed. Have I? 6 months ago, you couldn't say Jessica's name without your jaw tightening. Now you're talking about her sending birthday presents like it's normal. It's not normal. It's work. Marcus met Robert's eyes. But everything worth having is work. That's what my therapist says anyway, and my daughter, and your mother. The 3 of them have apparently formed a coalition dedicated to my emotional growth. Robert laughed. My mother does love a project. Your mother loves Maya. I'm just a bonus. Marcus finished his coffee. When is the Mayo announcement? Press conference is Friday. They want you there. Me, not you. This is your technology, Marcus. Your team. Your moment. Robert stood, buttoning his jacket. I'll be there for support, but the spotlight is yours. He was halfway to the door when Marcus called out, Robert? Yes. Thank you, for everything. For the job, for the promotion, for walking into that gymnasium when I needed someone to see me. Marcus's voice caught slightly. You changed my life. Robert turned back, his expression softer than Marcus had ever seen it. No, he said. I gave you an opportunity. You changed your own life. He smiled. That's the difference between people who make it and people who don't. The ones who make it understand that no one saves them. They save themselves. He left, closing the door quietly behind him. Marcus sat alone in his office, surrounded by the evidence of a success he still couldn't quite believe was real. His phone buzzed. A text from Maya. Dad, I finished the code for my science fair project. Can we test it tonight? Marcus grinned. His daughter had been working on her neural network project for months now. A facial recognition system designed to help people with prosopagnosia, face blindness, identify their loved ones. She'd come up with the idea after reading about the condition online, and she'd been relentless in her pursuit of making it work. Absolutely, he typed back, but only if you've eaten lunch, and not just candy from the vending machine. It was a granola bar. That's healthy. That's sugar with marketing. Real lunch, then science. Ugh, fine. But you're making dinner tonight. I want tacos. Deal. Love you. Love you too. Now stop texting and do your important business stuff so you can come home on time. Marcus pocketed his phone, still smiling. This was his life now. Corner offices and billion-dollar contracts, and a daughter who reminded him every day what actually mattered. He turned back to his computer and got to work. The press conference was held in the main auditorium of the Mayo Clinic's Rochester campus. Marcus had never spoken to this many cameras before. There had to be at least 50 journalists in the room, plus the live feed being broadcast to medical institutions worldwide. He stood at the podium, his notes trembling slightly in his hands, and forced himself to breathe. Good afternoon, he began. My name is Marcus Williams, and I'm the Chief Technology Officer of Chen Innovations. I'm here to talk about how artificial intelligence is going to save lives. The room went quiet, attentive. 3 years ago, my daughter asked me a question. She was 7 at the time, and we were watching a documentary about doctors in underserved communities. She turned to me and said, Daddy, why can't the computer just tell them what's wrong with the patient? A few murmurs of amusement rippled through the crowd. I told her it was complicated, that medicine wasn't that simple, that there were too many variables for a computer to process. Marcus paused. She looked at me like I was an idiot and said, Then make a better computer. Genuine laughter now. So I did. We did. Our team at Chen Innovations spent 3 years developing a neural network capable of analyzing medical imaging with accuracy that matches or exceeds the best human diagnosticians. Not to replace doctors, but to support them. To catch what human eyes might miss. To give every patient, regardless of where they live or how much money they have, access to world-class diagnostic capability. He clicked to the next slide. Today, I'm proud to announce that the Mayo Clinic has agreed to implement this technology across their entire network. Within 18 months, every Mayo facility in the country will have access to our diagnostic AI. And this is just the beginning. He talked for another 20 minutes about the technology, the testing, the safeguards they'd built in. He answered questions from skeptical journalists and enthusiastic medical professionals. He handled a challenging query from a reporter who wanted to know about job displacement with grace and honesty. AI won't replace doctors, he said. It will free them to do what only humans can do. Provide compassion, make judgment calls, hold a patient's hand when they're afraid. The goal isn't to remove humanity from medicine, it's to enhance it. When it was over, when the cameras stopped rolling and the journalists dispersed, Marcus found himself standing alone at the podium, looking out at the empty seats. That was exceptional. He turned. Dr. Catherine Walsh, the Mayo Clinic's chief medical officer, approached with her hand extended. Thank you for this opportunity, Marcus said, shaking her hand. Thank you for the technology. She studied him with the sharp eyes of someone who had spent decades evaluating people. I have to admit, when Robert first proposed this partnership, I was skeptical. AI in medicine is a minefield. One wrong diagnosis, one lawsuit, and the whole thing falls apart. That's why we built in the safeguards. The AI doesn't diagnose. It flags. It suggests. The final call always stays with the physician. I know. I read every page of your technical documentation. She smiled slightly. All 437 pages. That must have been riveting. It was, actually. Most tech companies want to dazzle us with promises. You gave us data, limitations, honest assessments of where the technology falls short. She tilted her head. That's rare in your industry. It's how I was raised. My mother always said that trust is built on honesty, not on telling people what they want to hear. Smart woman. The smartest person I've ever known. She worked 2 jobs to put me through school. Died 6 years ago, but I still hear her voice in my head every time I'm about to cut a corner. Marcus smiled. She would have hated this press conference. Too many cameras, not enough humility. Dr. Walsh laughed. I think I would have liked your mother. Everyone liked my mother. It was her superpower. They walked together toward the exit, talking about implementation timelines and training protocols. As they reached the lobby, Marcus spotted a familiar figure waiting near the doors. Maya. She was supposed to be at school. She was definitely not supposed to be in Rochester, Minnesota, 500 miles from home. Dad. She ran toward him. Her braids flying behind her, her face split by a grin that immediately made him forget to be concerned about truancy. Maya, what are you doing here? Mrs. Chen brought me. She said, important moments should be witnessed by the people who matter. Maya threw her arms around him. I watched the whole thing on the live stream in the car. You were so good, Dad. You didn't even look nervous. I was terrified. Well, you hid it really well. She pulled back and looked up at him with shining eyes. I'm so proud of you. Marcus felt something crack open in his chest. This girl. This impossible, wonderful girl. I'm proud of you too, baby. For what I didn't do anything. For being you. For pushing me. For asking why the computer couldn't just tell the doctors what was wrong. He knelt down to her level. This whole thing started with you, Maya. That question you asked 3 years ago. It planted a seed. Really? Really? You're in the presentation, actually. I told the whole room about the 7-year-old who thought I should make a better computer. Maya's eyes went wide. You told everyone about me. Of course I did. You're my inspiration. She hugged him again, fierce and tight, and Marcus held on like she was the only real thing in a world gone strange. Mr. Williams. He looked up. Mrs. Chen approached, elegant as always in a silk blouse and tailored pants. Mrs. Chen, thank you for bringing her. It was my pleasure. Robert wanted to be here, but he had a board meeting he couldn't reschedule. He sends his congratulations. She smiled down at Maya. This one was very insistent. She called me at 6 this morning and informed me that missing her father's big moment was not an option. I didn't want you to be alone, Maya said, looking up at Marcus. Important moments should have people who love you there. That's what you always say. Marcus didn't trust his voice, so he just pulled her close again. Dr. Walsh watched the scene with a warm expression. This is your daughter, the one with the question. This is her. Maya, this is Dr. Walsh. She runs the Mayo Clinic. Maya stepped forward and extended her hand with startling formality. It's very nice to meet you, Dr. Walsh. Thank you for believing in my dad's technology. Dr. Walsh shook her hand, clearly charmed. It's very nice to meet you, Maya. Your father tells me you're working on your own neural network project. It's for the science fair. It helps people recognize faces. I got the idea from my dad's work. Maya beamed. He's teaching me to code. She's teaching herself, Marcus corrected. I just answer questions when she gets stuck. He doesn't get stuck very often, Maya added. He's really smart. I can see that. Dr. Walsh looked at Marcus with new appreciation. You've raised a remarkable young lady, Mr. Williams. She raised herself. I just tried to stay out of the way. Maya rolled her eyes. That's not true. He makes me do homework before coding and vegetables before dessert and all sorts of unreasonable things. The horror, Mrs. Chen said dryly. They stood in the lobby. This unlikely group, a billionaire's mother, a world-renowned physician, a software executive, and a 10-year-old girl, and for a moment Marcus felt the strangeness of his own life wash over him. A year ago he'd been a nobody. Jessica's word, but also his own. He'd believed it. He'd built his entire identity around being less than. Now he was standing in the Mayo Clinic, surrounded by people who believed in him, watching his daughter charm one of the most powerful doctors in America. Dad! Maya tugged on his sleeve. Yeah, baby. Can we get ice cream? Mrs. Chen said there's a really good place nearby, and I think you deserve a celebration. Marcus looked at Mrs. Chen, who shrugged elegantly. The child makes compelling arguments. It is a gift. Ice cream it is, Marcus said. But you're eating real dinner first. Ugh, always with the rules. They walked out of the Mayo Clinic together, Maya chattering about her science fair project, Mrs. Chen interjecting occasional comments about the importance of proper nutrition. Marcus just listening, letting the sound of their voices wash over him. This is what success sounds like, he thought. Not applause, not press conferences. Just the people you love walking beside you. The flight home was late and Maya fell asleep with her head on Marcus's shoulder somewhere over Indiana. Mrs. Chen had taken a separate plane back to California, but not before pressing a small package into Marcus's hands. For later, she'd said, when you're ready. He opened it now, carefully trying not to wake Maya. Inside was a watch, beautiful, expensive, clearly antique, and a note in Mrs. Chen's elegant handwriting. This belonged to my husband. He wore it the day we opened our first store, the day Robert was born, the day we signed the deal that made Chen Innovations possible. It witnessed all our important moments. Now it's time for it to witness yours. Welcome to the family, Marcus. Helen. Marcus stared at the note until the words blurred. Family. He'd spent so long believing he didn't have one, that the divorce had broken something unfixable, that Maya and he were alone in the world, two survivors clinging to each other in the wreckage. But family wasn't just blood. Family was the people who showed up, who believed in you when you couldn't believe in yourself, who drove 500 miles so you wouldn't be alone at your moment of triumph. He put on the watch. It fit perfectly. Maya stirred beside him. Dad? Yeah, baby. I had a dream that you were famous. That's a weird dream. You were on TV and everyone was clapping and I was in the front row wearing a fancy dress. She yawned. And Mom was there too, in the back. But she was smiling. Marcus felt his heart twist. That sounds like a nice dream. It was. Maya snuggled closer. Do you think it could come true? The part about Mom being there? I don't know, sweetheart. Maybe. I hope so. Her voice was getting fainter, sleep pulling her back under. I want her to see how amazing you are. I want her to know she was wrong about you. Marcus kissed the top of her head. Go back to sleep, baby girl. Love you, Dad. Love you too, more than anything. She was asleep within seconds, her breathing deep and even. Marcus looked out the window at the darkness below, at the scattered lights of cities he couldn't name, and thought about dreams and mothers and the strange winding paths that led people home. The science fair was in 3 weeks. Maya had been talking about nothing else. It has to be perfect, Dad, perfect. Do you understand? This is my moment. I understand, but it's also supposed to be fun. Winning is fun. Second place is not fun. Second place is failure with a ribbon. That's a little dramatic. I learned from the best. She'd grinned at him. Now help me fix this code. The facial recognition keeps thinking Mr. Patterson is a lamp. They'd spent the next 2 hours debugging Marcus, trying to guide, rather than solve, watching his daughter's mind work through problems with a precision that sometimes took his breath away. She was going to change the world someday. He had no doubt about that. But first, she had to win the Wilson Elementary Science Fair, and Marcus had to figure out how to be in two places at once, because the night of the science fair was also the night of Chen Innovation's annual gala, where he was expected to give a speech about the Mayo Clinic partnership in front of 500 of the most influential people in tech. "You should go to the gala," Maya had said when he'd explained the conflict. "It's important. You're important. I'm 10. I'll have lots of science fairs. You won't get another chance to give a speech at a fancy party where people have to listen to you." "Maya, I mean it, Dad." She'd looked at him with those serious eyes that saw too much. "I'll be fine. Mrs. Chen already said she'd come. And Mr. Patterson. And maybe even Mom if she's not busy." The mention of Jessica had startled him. "You invited your mother." "I called her last week. She said she'd try to make it." Maya had shrugged, trying to look casual and failing completely. "It's probably too far for her to come, but I wanted to ask." Marcus had wanted to say something comforting, something about managing expectations, about not getting her hopes up. But he'd looked at his daughter's face, hopeful and afraid, and trying so hard to be okay with whatever happened, and he'd kept his mouth shut. Some lessons had to be learned the hard way. The night of the science fair arrived faster than Marcus expected. He stood in his apartment, adjusting his tuxedo in the mirror, watching Maya put the finishing touches on her project display in the living room. "You look fancy," she said without looking up. "I feel ridiculous." "That's what fancy feels like, Mrs. Chen told me." Maya stepped back to examine her work. "How does this look?" Marcus walked over. The display was impressive, a laptop connected to a camera, surrounded by photos of faces the neural network had been trained to recognize. At the top, in Maya's careful handwriting, "Face Find helping people see the ones they love." "It looks professional," Marcus said. "You should be proud." "I'll be proud when I win." She turned to face him. "Dad, you really don't have to come. I know how important the gala is." "Nothing is more important than you." "That's sweet, but it's also not true. The gala is where you tell everyone about the Mayo thing. That's going to save lives. My science fair is just—" She gestured vaguely. "A school thing." "Your science fair is you sharing something you created with the world. That's not nothing." Marcus knelt down to her level. "I'm going to give my speech, and then I'm going to come straight to the science fair. I'll be there for the judging. I promise." "What if you're late?" "Then I'll run. In that tuxedo. I'll take off my shoes first." He smiled. "I'm not going to miss this, Maya. Not for anything." She hugged him tight. "I love you, Dad." "I love you too, baby girl. Now finish your setup. Mrs. Chen will be here in 20 minutes. I know. She pulled back and shooed him toward the door. "Go be fancy. I've got this." Marcus looked at his daughter, this fierce, brilliant, impossible person he'd somehow helped create, and felt his heart swell with something too big for words. "You've got this," he agreed. And he walked out the door into the night, praying he could keep his promise. The gala was everything Marcus had expected, and nothing he was prepared for. 500 people in designer clothes holding champagne glasses that cost more than his first car, all of them turning to look as he entered the ballroom. The applause started somewhere near the front and rippled backward like a wave, and Marcus had to remind himself to keep walking, to keep breathing, to keep putting one foot in front of the other. Robert met him at the edge of the stage, grinning like a man who had just won every bet he'd ever placed. "You're late," Robert said. "Traffic." "In a helicopter." The pilot took the scenic route. Marcus adjusted his bow tie, which suddenly felt like it was strangling him. "How much time do I have?" 20 minutes, then you're on." Robert clapped him on the shoulder. "Relax, you've done this before." "I've never done this. I gave a press conference. This is different." "How?" "These people are wearing more money than I made in my first decade of working." "These people are wearing more money than most countries' GDP, and none of them built what you built." Robert's expression softened. "You belong here, Marcus. Stop acting like you're crashing the party." Marcus wanted to argue, wanted to explain that belonging wasn't something you could just decide, that the voice in his head, the one that sounded like Jessica, like his own self-doubt, Like every person who had ever looked at him and seen less than was louder tonight than it had been in months. But Robert was already steering him toward a cluster of executives, introducing him, watching with quiet pride as Marcus shook hands and made small talk and pretended he wasn't counting every second until he could leave. 17 minutes. He could do this for 17 minutes. Mr. Williams. Marcus turned. A woman in a silver gown approached, her face familiar in a way he couldn't quite place. I'm Sarah Chen, Robert's cousin. We met briefly at the company picnic last year. Sarah, of course. He remembered now, the quiet woman who had spent most of the picnic reading under a tree. How are you? Nervous. I'm presenting the quarterly environmental report after your speech, and I've never spoken to a crowd this size. She laughed self-consciously. I don't know how you do it. I don't know either. I just open my mouth and hope words come out. That's not reassuring. It wasn't meant to be. Marcus smiled. What's your report about carbon neutrality initiatives? We're ahead of schedule on most metrics, but there's this one section about water usage that I keep stumbling over. She shook her head. Sorry, you don't need to hear about my problems. You have your own speech to worry about. Actually, distraction helps. Marcus glanced at his watch. 14 minutes. Tell me about the water usage section. Sarah's eyes lit up. For the next 10 minutes, she walked him through the technical details of Chen Innovation's water reclamation projects. Her nervousness evaporating as she talked about something she clearly loved. Marcus asked questions, offered suggestions, watched her confidence build with each answer. That's really helpful, she said finally. Thank you for listening. Thank you for distracting me. He checked his watch again. 4 minutes. I should probably head backstage. Mr. Williams. Sarah touched his arm lightly. My cousin told me what you did for him, how you took a chance on someone no one else believed in. Robert took a chance on me. I just showed up. That's not what he says. Sarah smiled. He says you're the reason he still believes in people. After everything with his father, he'd stopped trusting anyone outside the family. Then you came along. Marcus didn't know what to say. Good luck with your speech, Sarah said. I'll be cheering from the back. She disappeared into the crowd, leaving Marcus alone with 3 minutes and a heart full of something he couldn't name. The stage was larger than he'd expected. The lights were brighter. The silence when the applause faded was more complete. Marcus stood at the podium, looking out at 500 faces he didn't recognize, and felt the familiar terror rising in his chest. Then he thought about Maya. About her standing in front of her own crowd tonight, presenting her own work, probably feeling this exact same fear. If she could do it, so could he. Good evening, Marcus began. My name is Marcus Williams, and a year ago, I was nobody. The room went still. I don't mean that metaphorically. I mean it literally. A year ago, I was a mid-level software engineer with a failed marriage, a struggling career, and a 10-year-old daughter who was the only person in the world who believed I was capable of being more. He paused. Let the words settle. Tonight, I'm the Chief Technology Officer of one of the most innovative companies in the world. I'm standing in front of 500 of the most influential people in technology, and I'm about to tell you about a partnership that will change the future of medicine. He clicked to his first slide. But first, I want to tell you about the moment everything changed. Marcus talked about the reunion, about standing in his old high school gymnasium surrounded by people who had known him when he was 17 and hopeful, about his ex-wife, though he didn't use her name and the words she had said to him. She told me I was still a nobody, Marcus said, that I would always be a nobody, and for a moment, just a moment, I believed her. The room was utterly silent. Then someone appeared who saw me differently, someone who saw potential where I saw failure, someone who offered me a chance I didn't think I deserved. Marcus looked down at the podium, then back up at the crowd. Robert Chen saved my career that night, but more than that, he reminded me of something I had forgotten. He took a breath. Our worth is not determined by the people who doubt us. It is determined by what we do when we're given the opportunity to prove them wrong. The applause started slowly, then built to something thunderous. Marcus let it wash over him, feeling something shift in his chest. He spent the next 15 minutes talking about the Mayo Clinic partnership, the technology, the lives it would save. He showed data and testimonials and projections. He answered questions with the confidence of someone who knew his subject inside and out. But when it was over, when the final applause faded and he walked off stage, only one thought filled his mind. Maya. He checked his watch. 8:47 p.m. The science fair judging started at 9 o'clock. He had 13 minutes to get across town. Marcus? Robert caught him at the exit. That was incredible. Harrison Webb wants to talk to you about expanding the partnership to international markets. Tell him I'll call him tomorrow. Tomorrow? This is... Robert stopped reading something in Marcus's face. The science fair. I promised her I'd be there. Robert was quiet for a moment. Then he smiled. Go, I'll handle Webb. Robert? Go. Your daughter needs you. He pressed a key into Marcus's hand. Take my car. The Tesla. It's faster than anything else in the garage. Marcus didn't argue. He took the key and ran. The Tesla ate up the miles between the convention center and Wilson Elementary like they were nothing. Marcus broke at least 3 traffic laws and probably several more he didn't know about. His eyes fixed on the clock, his heart pounding against his ribs. 8:56, 8:57, 8:58. He pulled into the school parking lot at 8:59, abandoned the car in a spot that was definitely not a parking spot, and sprinted for the entrance in his tuxedo and dress shoes. The gymnasium doors were just closing when he reached them. Wait. A teacher he didn't recognize turned eyebrows raised at the sight of a man in formal wear breathing heavily, clearly having run some distance. I'm Marcus Williams. My daughter is presenting, Maya Williams. The judging is about to start. Please. Marcus heard the desperation in his own voice and didn't care. I promised her I'd be here. The teacher hesitated. Then she smiled and stepped aside. Hurry. She's near the back. Marcus pushed through the doors and into the gymnasium. The space had been transformed. Tables lined every wall, each one displaying a different project. Kids in their best clothes stood nervously beside their work parents clustered behind them, judges moving through the crowd with clipboards and serious expressions. Marcus scanned the room searching for Maya's braids, her bright smile, her there. Near the back corner, standing beside her face-fine display, looking impossibly small and incredibly brave. And she wasn't alone. Mrs. Chen stood to her left, elegant as always, offering quiet encouragement. Mr. Patterson, the veteran from their apartment building, stood to her right, wearing what was probably his only suit, looking like he'd fight anyone who didn't appreciate Maya's genius. And behind them, almost hidden in the crowd, stood Jessica. Marcus's feet stopped moving. Jessica looked different, smaller somehow, less polished. She wore a simple dress instead of her usual designer labels, and her makeup was minimal, almost natural. She stood apart from the others, watching Maya with an expression Marcus had never seen on her face before. Longing. And something that looked almost like grief. Maya spotted him. Her face lit up like sunrise. Dad! She ran toward him, weaving through the crowd, and Marcus caught her in his arms and held on tight. You made it. She breathed into his shoulder. You made it. You made it. You made it. I promised I would. I know. But I thought maybe... She pulled back, her eyes wet. You came. I will always come. Marcus cupped her face in his hands. Nothing in the world is more important than you. Nothing. Maya hugged him again, fierce and fast, then pulled away with the determination of someone who had work to do. Come on. The judges are almost here. I need to show you the final version. She dragged him to her table where Mrs. Chen greeted him with a knowing smile, and Mr. Patterson gave him a firm handshake that said everything words couldn't. You clean up good, son, Patterson said, eyeing the tuxedo. Fancy party. Something like that. And you left to come here. There was never any question. Patterson nodded slowly, something like respect settling into his weathered features. Good man. Marcus turned to Mrs. Chen. Thank you for being here. Where else would I be? My granddaughter is about to make history. I'm not your granddaughter, Maya said automatically, not looking up from her laptop. Not yet. But I am very persistent. Marcus became aware of Jessica hovering at the edge of their group, uncertain, waiting. He met her eyes across the distance. She looked terrified. He walked toward her. You came, he said. She invited me. Jessica's voice was barely audible. I didn't know if I should. If you'd want me here. But she asked, and I couldn't say no. I'm glad you're here. Jessica blinked clearly, not expecting that response. You are? Maya wanted you here. That's what matters. Marcus glanced back at their daughter, who was watching them with careful hope. She's been working on this project for months. She's brilliant, Jessica. Genuinely brilliant. I know. I've been watching the videos she sends. Jessica's eyes welled up. I missed so much, Marcus. So much of her life, and I can't get it back. No, you can't. Marcus kept his voice gentle. But you can be here now. That's what she needs, not perfection, just presence. Jessica nodded, wiping her eyes quickly. I'm trying. I know it doesn't seem like much, but I'm trying. I know you are. Marcus surprised himself by meaning it. She knows it too. The judges are coming. Maya's urgent whisper cut through the moment. Marcus and Jessica moved to join the others, standing together, not as a family, not quite, but as something new. Something that didn't have a name yet. The judges were 3 women in professional attire, carrying clipboards and wearing the serious expressions of people who had seen hundreds of science fair projects and expected this one to be no different. They were wrong. Good evening, Maya said, her voice clear and confident. My name is Maya Williams, and I'd like to introduce you to FaceFind. She walked them through the project with the precision of someone who had practiced 1,000 times. The technology, the inspiration, the testing process, the results. Prosopagnosia affects approximately 1 in 50 people, Maya explained. That's millions of people worldwide who can't recognize the faces of their own family members, their own children, their own parents. She glanced at Marcus. I wanted to help them see the people they love. One of the judges leaned forward. How does the system work? It's a neural network trained on specific faces. When the user looks through the camera, the system identifies recognized individuals and displays their name and relationship. Mom, dad, sister, friend. Maya pulled up the demo. Would you like to try it? The judge looked skeptical, but agreed. Maya had her look into the camera, then showed her the screen where her face was highlighted with the label, Science Fair Judge Number 1. It works in real time, Maya said, and it can be trained on any face. I tested it on 37 volunteers, including people with actual prosopagnosia. The accuracy rate was 94%. The judges exchanged glances. One of them was furiously scribbling notes. Where did you learn to build neural networks? The third judge asked. This is advanced work for... How old are you? I'm 10, and my dad taught me. Maya beamed at Marcus. He's the CTO of Chen Innovations. He develops AI that helps doctors save lives. I wanted to do something similar, but for regular people. Marcus felt his heart swell with pride so intense it was almost painful. The judges asked more questions. Maya answered every one with the confidence of someone who had inherited the best parts of both her parents, her mother's poise, her father's depth. When they finally moved on, Maya let out a breath she'd clearly been holding for the entire presentation. How did I do? She whispered. You were perfect, Marcus said. I wasn't perfect. I forgot to mention the training time optimization in the middle section. No one noticed. I noticed. But she was smiling. Do you think I have a chance? I think you have more than a chance. I think you're going to win. Dad, you have to say that. You're my dad. I'm also a professional who works with AI every day. Trust me, Maya, what you built is extraordinary. Mrs. Chen stepped forward and placed a hand on Maya's shoulder. He's right. I've seen the work my son's company produces. This is better than half of it. It is not, Maya protested, but she was blushing. It is, and I do not give compliments lightly. Mr. Patterson cleared his throat. I don't understand most of what you said up there, but I know impressive when I see it. You've got something special, kid. Maya looked at the group assembled around her, her father in his tuxedo, Mrs. Chen in her silk, Mr. Patterson in his Sunday best, and something shifted in her expression. Then she turned to Jessica, who had been standing slightly apart, watching the celebration with hungry eyes. Mom, what did you think? Jessica stepped forward slowly, like she was approaching something fragile. I think, her voice caught, I think you're the most amazing person I've ever known, and I think I'm so sorry for all the time I missed. Maya studied her mother for a long moment. Then she crossed the distance between them and wrapped her arms around Jessica's waist. It's okay, Mom. You're here now. Jessica broke. The tears came silently at first, then with shaking shoulders, then with quiet sobs that she tried desperately to muffle. She held her daughter like she was afraid Maya would disappear, crying into her hair, whispering apologies that Maya kept brushing away. It's okay. It's okay. I forgive you. Marcus watched them, feeling something old and wounded finally beginning to heal. This wasn't the family he'd imagined when he was 22 and in love and full of hope. It wasn't the family he'd fought for during the divorce. It wasn't even the family he'd resigned himself to building alone. It was something else, something messy and complicated and imperfect, but it was real, and it was his. Mrs. Chen appeared at his elbow. You did well, she said quietly. I didn't do anything. You made space for her to be here. That took courage. Mrs. Chen watched Jessica and Maya with soft eyes. Forgiveness is not about the other person deserving it. It's about freeing yourself from the weight of carrying their sins. Did you forgive your husband for leaving? Eventually. It took years. She smiled slightly. But by the time he called asking for money, I could say no without hatred. That was freedom. The announcement came 30 minutes later. The gymnasium had grown crowded with families waiting for results, the tension palpable, kids fidgeting nervously beside projects they'd poured their hearts into. Maya stood between her parents. Marcus on one side, Jessica on the other, with Mrs. Chen and Mr. Patterson close behind. A united front. Third place, the head judge announced, goes to Timothy Patterson for his project on hydroponics. Polite applause. A boy near the front pumped his fist and ran to collect his ribbon. Second place goes to Sarah Mendez for her exploration of solar energy efficiency. More applause. A girl in a yellow dress walked to the stage beaming. Marcus felt Maya's hand slip into his. He squeezed it tight. And first place, the judge said, pausing for effect, goes to Maya Williams for FaceFind, helping people see the ones they love. The gymnasium exploded. Maya screamed. Actually screamed a sound of pure joy that Marcus had never heard from her before. She jumped up and down, hugging everyone within reach. Marcus, Jessica, Mrs. Chen, Mr. Patterson, even a random parent who happened to be standing nearby. I won, she shouted. Dad, I won. I know, baby, I know. She ran to the stage to collect her trophy, a golden figure holding a beaker taller than she was. The crowd cheered. The judges smiled. Somewhere in the back, Robert Chen, who had apparently arrived without Marcus noticing, was clapping and whistling like he was at a rock concert. Maya held the trophy above her head, looking out at the sea of faces, and found her father's eyes. This is for you, she shouted. For believing in me. Marcus felt tears streaming down his face and didn't bother to wipe them away. Later, after the crowd dispersed and the gymnasium emptied, and Maya had taken approximately 400 photos with her trophy, the group stood in the parking lot, reluctant to let the moment end. Ice cream, Maya suggested. I think winners deserve ice cream. At this hour? Jessica asked, then caught herself. Actually, yes. Winners definitely deserve ice cream. Can we all go? Maya looked around the group. All of us together. Marcus glanced at Jessica, who glanced at Mrs. Chen, who was already pulling out her phone. I know a place that's open until midnight, Mrs. Chen said. Robert, you're coming too. Don't argue." "I wasn't going to argue," Robert said. "I never turned down free ice cream." "Who said I was paying?" "You always pay. It's why I keep you around." They piled into various cars and drove across town to a small shop that Mrs. Chen apparently kept it in business single-handedly. The owner recognized her immediately and opened up a private room in the back despite the late hour. "For my best customer," he said with a wink. They sat around a table, Marcus, Maya, Jessica, Mrs. Chen, Robert, and Mr. Patterson eating ice cream and laughing and telling stories. Maya showed off her trophy to anyone who would look. Mr. Patterson told increasingly unbelievable stories about his time in the military. Mrs. Chen and Robert argued about whether chocolate or vanilla was superior, a debate that apparently had been ongoing for 20 years. And Jessica, quiet and watchful, smiled more than Marcus had seen her smile in years. "Thank you," she said to him at one point when the others were distracted, "for letting me be part of this. You're her mother. You'll always be part of this. I know I don't deserve it." "Maybe not. But Maya does." Marcus watched their daughter, who was now teaching Mr. Patterson how to take a selfie. "She deserves parents who can be in the same room, who can celebrate her together, who can put her first. I want to be that person." "Then be that person. It's not complicated. You just show up, again and again, even when it's hard, even when you don't feel like it." He met her eyes. "That's what love is, Jessica. Not grand gestures, just presence." She nodded slowly, something like understanding settling into her features. "You've changed," she said. "I've grown. Into the person I always wanted you to be." "No." Marcus shook his head. "Into the person I always was. I just stopped letting you convince me otherwise." Jessica flinched, but she didn't argue. Maybe she couldn't. It was nearly midnight when they finally left the ice cream shop. Maya was half asleep, her trophy clutched to her chest, her head resting on Marcus's shoulder as he carried her to the car. "Best night ever," she mumbled. "I'm glad, baby." "Dad? Yeah. I'm really proud of you, for the gala and the speech and everything." Her eyes fluttered open briefly. "You're not a nobody. You never were." Marcus felt his throat tighten. "I know that now." "Good." She snuggled closer. "Because you're somebody to me, the most important somebody in the whole world." He buckled her into the back seat, kissed her forehead, and stood in the parking lot for a long moment, looking up at the stars. A year ago, he had been standing in a different parking lot, staring at the lights of his high school gymnasium, terrified to walk inside. Now, he was standing in another parking lot, watching his daughter sleep with a first-place trophy in her arms, surrounded by people who had become family, feeling something he'd almost forgotten how to feel. Complete. Robert appeared beside him. "Big night," Robert said. "Biggest of my life. Bigger than the Mayo announcement. Infinitely bigger," Marcus smiled. "Science fairs are more important than billion-dollar contracts. I'll remember you said that at the next board meeting." They stood in comfortable silence, two men who had started as strangers and become something more. "Thank you, Robert." "For what?" "For everything. For seeing me when I couldn't see myself. For walking into that gymnasium. For all of it." Robert was quiet for a moment. "You know, my mother once told me that the measure of a person isn't what they achieve for themselves. It's what they make possible for others." He looked at Marcus. "You've made a lot possible, Marcus. For your team, for your daughter, for me. For you. You reminded me why I started this company, not for the money or the power, for the chance to find people like you and give them a platform to change the world." Robert smiled. "So thank you, for being findable." He walked away before Marcus could respond, climbing into his Tesla and disappearing into the night. Marcus drove home with Maya asleep in the back seat, the streets quiet, the city peaceful. He carried her up to their apartment, tucked her into bed with her trophy on the nightstand, where she could see it when she woke up, and stood in her doorway for a long time, watching her breathe. His phone buzzed. A text from Jessica. Thank you for tonight. I know I have a long way to go, but I want you to know I'm not giving up. Not on her. Not on being better." Marcus typed back, "I believe you. Good night, Jessica." He walked to his own room, changed out of the tuxedo that had somehow survived the night, and sat on the edge of his bed. On his wrist, the watch Mrs. Chen had given him caught the moonlight. He thought about all the important moments it had witnessed. The store opening, the birth, the deals and the struggles and the triumphs. Now, it had witnessed this night too. His daughter's victory. His ex-wife's first steps toward redemption. His own quiet realization that he had finally become the man he'd always wanted.